Hello, welcome to the Maine Art Spirit Studio. My name is Michael Vermette and we are on the Moxie Falls Trail. We're going to paint the scenic view of the falls today. It's a beautiful spring day and I'm anticipating a lot of water coming over the falls, so I'm very, very excited. Come join me on the trail today and let's go paint a watercolor of Moxie Falls. Moxie Falls is a waterfall in Somerset County, Maine, at a vertical drop of over 90 feet into a pool about 17 feet deep. Moxie Falls is one of the highest falls in New England. The falls are a part of Moxie Stream, which flows from Moxie Pond into the Kennebec River, approximately a mile downstream to the falls. It reminds me of the psalmist who said, "He makes springs pour water into the ravines. It flows between the mountains." This spectacular area is made available for the enjoyment of the people of Maine through a generous 217-acre gift from the Colburn Lands Trust, and with agreement with Central Maine Power Company. The Maine Department of Conservation, Bureau of Parks and Recreations, allows no camping or fires. They foster a carry-in and carry-out policy, and they highly recommend caution near the falls. This place is literally a feast for the eye with many painting possibilities. There is a boardwalk with steps on a well-kept trail about a mile from the parking lot. From the head of the falls, you'll want to venture further where you'll find viewing decks that offer a full view and an amazing painting experience. But be careful, it can be really steep and you can lose things very easily. And this will be our subject for today. I'm going to begin by starting with the drawing, and as you can see, I'm trying to establish the subject, which is the falls, on the whole page, trying to use up as much of the page as possible. I'm really looking at a vertical waterfall, then it actually starts out as a diagonal at the top, then drops down almost as a slight diagonal, and then even more to the left will the water actually be another diagonal. So it's kind of like almost a Z formation. I'm doing the rocks on the top right now to establish, actually they are rocks, but they're the water going over the rocks, and That's the thing you have to be most concerned about when you're doing a falls, is that avoiding that pitfall of just painting water separate from the rocks. The actual fact of the matter is the rocks go underneath the falls and underneath the water, and the water takes on the shape of the rock that goes through the river and goes through the stream and goes through the water form. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see where these actual drop-off points are, the ledges are of the rocks underneath the falls. You always want to draw from within the falls out, and not just the form all by itself without an understanding of what the form is actually doing over the rocks. And the form of the water, of course, is what I'm talking about. So putting in the side now, these large rocks, and doing some of those and some of the upper top rocks, and then I'll be doing more drawing as I go down. And here you can see that that's the darkest area of the left side of the falls. I'm also measuring at this point to see that I have the falls tall enough and also wide enough. I really don't want to make it too wide, because if I do, it'll be a shorter falls. So I want it to really look like 90 feet. So I'm going to continue to make these measurements, and I use the tip of my pencil and my thumb, slide my thumb out and make a measurement that way. You want to be really careful as well that as time goes on in this painting, the subject's going to change, so I'm really starting to look at what I want out of the subject, where this is the first time I've actually painted it in watercolor. I really enjoy looking at half of this in shadow, and so establishing some of the shadow lines is going to be very important in your initial drawing, which means that most of the falls right now is in shadow, and the top of the falls is in sunlight, and then the very bottom is in sunlight as well. And so you have light, shadow, light, which is really quite nice. And then in the middle of the falls, you're going to see as it actually jetties out, when the falls kind of punches the water out. When it hits the rocks, it actually captures a little bit of light here and there, and I like that. So, I want to be able to describe all of that. And I want to do it very simply in a drawing. I don't want to get too elaborate with the drawing, because in the painting process I'll be drawing quite a lot. So I'm going to apply a whiting that's made of Chinese white and also a little bit of rabbit skin glue. This ground was used by Paul Cézanne when painting on canvas, and you can use it also on paper. I'm going to begin with a light yellow ochre wash, and I'm using a very large mop brush that comes to a point, but it holds a lot of water. I want to do a lot of wet into wet shapes because your falls is very soft edged. I've created two surfaces on the paper. One of the surfaces is the organic paper itself, and then I've created a ground that moves anything that it's painted on forward. So the falls is coming forward, and it can have the danger of coming forward too much if I don't put some darks on it. So I'm playing with a surface. This whiting surface allows you to take paint off, put things on, and really darken. It really holds the color very well. It's kind of like painting on Yupo, and it just brings the colors to the forefront and actually pops the color in a very nice way. So now I'm putting in some of the lower water going over some of the rocks, and you can actually see where the water's over the rocks, and on the top it's kind of a darker value, and that creates a nice contrast. Even though there's a lot of light up there, there's also a lot of dark water just before the falls over the rock, and here's a lot more detail that's being put in now. I'm using a smaller rigger brush, and it's creating a lot of fine line work. So I went from a very big mop to number 26, and now I'm using a flat, a 1-inch flat, and a variety of brushes, even the rigger, to create all the lines and all the details of the work that I want. You may have noticed that I have lost my umbrella It pretty much blew almost my unit over, so I had to deploy that and put it away. Because of that, the sun has really made my eyes, my pupils extremely tight, so I'm not able to see a lot of color. And I'm finding that maybe I've made the shadow part of the falls a little too dark. But that's not a problem because the ground that I used will actually enable me to lift off and adjust. So another thing I'm going to try first right now is I'm going to try to darken the falls a little more, and that may be a mistake, but I'm going to try it anyway because I know I can darken the rock even more. And as I'm beginning to see it at the very end, as the painting, as I darken the rocks and also the falls, the big problem is, yes, I believe I did make it too dark. So if you take a look at the falls as it is right now, you'll see that it's very, very dark on each side, but that there's a defined shadow later on in the day that I didn't see earlier on. So in the painting, I did end up lifting the water. Using a lot of water, it actually lifts off easy because it has that ground surface on it. If this were paper, it probably wouldn't have lifted off a lot because a lot of the colors I used were stain colors. So I'm really happy with how this came out, and I did use ink on each side of the falls to try to get even more dark wet water media in there. And it really gave me an opportunity to create a lot of splash type of details and textures, and I love the light patterns on the subject. Well, it was wonderful painting today. So dramatic at the falls. Please like, subscribe, and comment. I'd love to hear your comments. I could get back to you. My email address is michael.vermette@roadrunner.com, and you have to spell it all out. And I will get back to you, and see you next week.